John Arthur Spenkelink was the first convicted criminal to be executed in Florida after capital punishment was reinstated in 1976, and the second after Gary Gilmore in the United States. When traveling through the Midwest on February 4, 1973, the 24-year-old Spenkelink, a twice convicted felon and escapee from a California prison camp, picked up Joseph J. Zimankiewicz, a hitchhiker. Both men were habitual drinkers and had criminal histories. In Tallahassee, they checked into a motel room. Spenkelink shot Zimankiewicz twice while he lay in bed, once in the head near the left ear and once in the back after leaving to wash the car. He then gave the hotel owner a pretext, paid for an extra day, and left with another hitchhiker, Frank Broom. Spenkelink maintained that he shot Zimankiewicz out of self-defense because he had previously forced him into having relations with him and also forced him to play Russian roulette. Additionally, he asserted that the gun accidentally fired during their altercation. Spenkelink and Broom were detained for alleged armed robbery in Buena Park, California, less than a week later. In the apartment that Broom and others were renting, the murder weapon was discovered. Both of them were put on trial for first-degree murder after returning to Florida. Broom was freed while Spenkelink was found guilty. Spenkelink resisted being executed all the way to the end, unlike Gary Gilmore. Spenkelink was offered a chance to admit to second-degree murder and receive a life sentence, but he refused. Reuben O'Donovan Askew, the governor, issued his first death warrant in 1977, but the court stopped the execution. The second execution warrant was signed by the new governor, Bob Graham, in 1979. Despite Supreme Court Justice Thurgood Marshall issuing a stay, this was the final death warrant. On May 25, 1979, the top of Spenkelink's skull was covered by metal contacts, his face was hidden by a mask, and his legs and arms were firmly fastened to Old Sparky. At the scheduled hour, 7 a.m., other prisoners grabbed the bars of their cells and shook them ferociously for a few minutes, generating waves of metallic rattling sounds around the old prison. They gave Spenkelink a noisy send-off. Spenkelink was given 2 shots of whiskey, then executed in front of 32 witnesses, including 10 reporters. It took 3 jolts to kill him. Because the blinds separating the witness section from the death chamber were closed until Spenkelink was strapped in, witnesses did not get a good look. Spenkelink had straps drawn tightly across his mouth and was denied the final statement by prison officials. He tensed up in response to the initial shock of electricity, straightening his back into the firm chair and extending, then gripping, as if straining in vain to make a fist. His body jerked during the second shock before relaxing. Spenkelink was inspected by a doctor using a stethoscope before being silently pronounced dead and the curtains being drawn once more. It had only taken a few minutes to complete everything. Following the execution, there were rumors that Spenkelink had been dragged to the chair, gagged and beaten. Some even believed that he was already dead when he was put in the chair. As a result, authorities decided to leave the blinds open the following time.
Mrs. Lois Spenkelink asked the Los Angeles County coroner to exhume her son's body for an autopsy to determine how he died. Until the present controversy, it was presumed that John Spenkelink died in the Florida State Electric chair May 25, 1979. Mrs. Spenkelink says she now believes her son could have been killed or somehow disabled before he was placed in the electric chair.
I want to prove to the United States and over the world, if we can, that my son was killed beforehand, to keep him from giving his last statement.
John Spenkelink's body was removed from the grave at a cemetery in Whittier, California yesterday, and the Los Angeles County Coroner's Office is to perform the autopsy today.
Additionally, following the exhumation of Spenkelink's remains for an autopsy, the state resolved to have William Hamilton, the medical examiner for the Gainesville region, conduct autopsies on all prisoners who had been put to death. Spenkelink's final words before being executed in the electric chair were, "Capital punishment. Them without the capital get the punishment." Jesse Bishop was the last person to be executed by lethal gas in Nevada in 1979 at 46 years old. Since then, all executions have been by lethal injection. He became the first person to be executed in Nevada since 1976, when the death penalty was reinstated, and the third person to be executed in the US since 1976, after Gary Gilmore and John Arthur Spenkelink. Bishop was born in Glasgow and grew up in Los Angeles. He said his first armed robbery was committed at the age of 15. He had 4 felony convictions for drug offenses and armed robbery when he committed the crime for which he received the death sentence. His first adult arrest was in 1951 when, as a paratrooper in Korea, he was arrested for possession of heroin. He served time at Fort Leavenworth and received a dishonorable discharge. He later served time in California and in federal prisons and was on parole the night he killed Mr. Ballard. On the night of December 20th, 1977, Bishop went inside the casino at the El Morocco Hotel in Las Vegas and identified himself as a robber to the cashier. Larry Thompson, a casino employee, and David Ballard, a 22-year-old Volkswagen technician from Baltimore who was on his honeymoon, wrestled with the thief. Bishop shot Mr. Thompson in the stomach after pulling a gun. He bounced back. Mr. Ballard was shot in the back while attempting to flee. A few days later, he passed away without coming to. He was married for just 3 hours before being shot by Bishop. Bishop committed 2 days' worth of armed robberies after the casino heist, during which he stole $278 and also stole cars before roaming around aimlessly. In Boulder City, Nevada, he was taken into custody when he was sleeping beneath a trailer. On October 22, 1979, dressed in denim trousers, white t-shirt, and white socks, Bishop was strapped into the chair. His chest had a stethoscope strapped on it, so that a doctor could determine when he was dead. This was connected to a lengthy tube that emerged from the gas chamber. The 10-foot by 10-foot death chamber, which had not been used in 18 years, featured a massive metal door that clanged shut. A mechanism that dropped dozens of cyanide pills into a dark vat beneath Bishop's chair and contained diluted sulfuric acid was activated by 3 volunteer guards flicking switches. His body jerked, his eyes closed, his mouth dropped open, his head raised and fell repeatedly on his chest. Except for the occasional tremor, his body has stopped moving after a while. About 75 opponents of the death penalty gathered outside the prison for a candlelight vigil. One of the judges who sentenced Bishop to death, Nevada District Judge Paul Goldman, claimed he had spoken to the murderer 2 months before the execution. Bishop admitted to him that he had participated in 18 drug-related contract killings. Bishop did not want to use his appeals and asked for all the decisions regarding his execution to be made in a hurry. He claimed he did not want to put his family through more suffering, and he was seen smiling on his way to the gas chamber. His final words to the state prison director Charles Wolf Jr. were, "This is one more step down the road of life that I've been heading for all my life." Please hit that subscribe button if you like my channel. See you next time. Bye bye.